Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hey Soul Tribe, Happy New Year 2021. We thought it would be a great episode, this one that we did with Patricia, to bring forth the first episode ever of 2021, where we literally talk about everything that is coming into play now, astrologically speaking, of course. And most of the things we talked about I found very interesting, but as well, I wanted a lot of clarification. I was looking to clarify the whole going in, like the era of going into Aquarius. Like I wasn't sure. I was hearing a lot of different information about it. So that's one of the first things we get into. But very interesting episode. As usual, Patricia has so much to share that we could have kept going for a while. I hope this helps you guys begin the year well. I hope it helps you guys kind of plan out your year as to what's your priority and what what you plan on doing for this year, because I think it's important to set an intention. So I hope this episode helped you guys find that intention and set it forth. And we wish you again a happy new year and enjoy the episode. Okay, Patricia. I don't know how to say it in English.
Patricia Tabares.
Yeah, Patricia's fine, or Patricia.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
The 21st of December, we entered into the era of Aquarius. I think they would say it that way. And we were really interested in finding out what that really means from your perspective. Because I've heard, other astrologers talk about it. I feel like, at least for me, who am not into astrology too much, I feel like it's a little confusing. So we wanted to kind of talk about that in this episode, and maybe you can help other people understand it, like me, that don't totally get it.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks again for your invitation. It's so nice to share these conversations with you. So again, thank you so much for having me with you today. And I would like to correct something that you just said, because this is actually something I've been hearing from different sources, different people, and I understand why there is this confusion, which is actually this idea that we are entering the Aquarius era. And actually, it's not exactly the beginning of the era, because this change of era will take probably around 200 and something more years to actually officially take place. And because, the change of eras take around 2,600 years, we are still in the transition between the Pisces era entering the Aquarius era. Now, officially, if we have to be very precise in terms of technical information, there's still some time ahead for the official entrance. But what you just said is definitely very important and resonates with this principle of Aquarius, because on December the 21st, just a few days ago, Jupiter and Saturn met in Aquarius for the first time after 800 years. So this is a very important moment energetically, because actually Jupiter and Saturn meet at the very same degree every 20 years. And so one would say, so what is so special about this meetup? Well, first of all, because, as I said, the last time they had been this close was 800 years ago, and it was a very important transition for humanity because we were leaving behind the dark ages to enter the more medieval times, right? So it was that like the entrance into a new era that would give then way to the Renaissance, right? So this Renaissance, this rebirth was actually triggered by the encounter of Jupiter and Saturn, leaving behind the old order and giving way to very important advances in the realm of, for those days, traveling, communication, science, in a way, medicine, the way it started being kind of tested or tried for the first time. So there were the very first steps into a more modern view of the world. And culturally also, it was the beginning of the organization of languages, the first kind of printing of grammars for different languages. So it was a moment of an important cultural, social rebirth, or actually birth of new trends. In those days, of course, very challenging because it was a very different perspective, very different way of dealing with the reality they had the possibility of getting hold of in those days. Now, back to this very special moment, this meetup of Saturn and Jupiter in more than in Aquarius, although it is very important, is the fact that they meet in an air sign after 200 years. Every 200 years, there is a change of element in this meetup between Saturn and Jupiter. So for 200 years, we see the predominance of events and important facts that are revealed in the world, in humanity, but hand in hand with the energy of that element. And to put this more clearly, before this beginning of the air era, and that is probably what we should call it rather than the Aquarius era, is the air era that will take place for 200 years from now on. We are leaving behind the earth era when everything was about possessing, about land ownership, about the possibility of conquering countries or conquering lands. So, and also the emphasis was laid on resources that are from the earth. So everything connected with agriculture, with oil, and everything connected with the produce of the earth, and the importance, as I said before, of owning these assets. So also this gave way to certain regulations and laws and even organizations of governments that based their focus on precisely this, establishing clear frontiers, having some sort of organization where rules were very clear so that this belongs to you, this belongs to this other person, mostly this belongs to us, the government, the ones in authority. So the earth usually gives way to very fixed kind of, I don't know, circumstances, or everything has more to do with finding stability and materialization and being able to make things real, right? To construct, to build, to have, right? To have my house in the city, my weekend house in the countryside, owning 2 or 3 cars, right? So everything was, the focus was on money and what money could allow us to have, right? So what possibilities we had to be who we are depending on what we own, right? It's like, I don't know exactly what saying you use in English, but it's in Spanish, we say that we are what we own, right? Something of the sort. I don't know if you can think of another saying or proverb along those lines. But anyway, the important thing is the concept itself. So with this new encounter between Saturn and Jupiter, but this time in Aquarius, the power changes hands and the focus also changes hands. So rather than focusing on what institutions or how institutions are organized, who is the head of that institution, who is the authority, all this vertical view of the world, like we are here on the top and you have to obey whatever is dictated from above. So that is part of this previous order that has already come to an end. Of course, all change takes time. So we are obviously in the middle of a transition. It's not that on the 21st, the old order came to a complete end, and now we are entering this new air era. It takes really time. But what we have probably realized with this 2020, when we were forced to stay indoors and to really become more conscious of the things we own, we possess, and what they mean to us, is it important to really have this big house and live alone and not be able to share it with other people, friends or family, or my house in the city that has been locked down for so long, and it is more what I have to pay for maintenance than what I'm actually enjoying it. That is in part what this lockdown has shown us. Also, the fact that we were isolated and on the one hand helping us to do some sort of introspection and to be able to find answers within, because answers from outside are not even today clear, or we don't have really answers that we can hold on to know what path to choose or what to do next, right? So this isolation was like the final act for what is coming, which is with the air, the era of communication, interaction, horizontality, the collective, right? So if you see what we have been doing also for the last months, because we were isolated and alone at home, we had to, as human beings, devise more ways of being in touch with other people. So this Zoom session or this video session is an example of what I'm just saying, right? And we are all three in a different country. And even though we are all three in a different city, in a different country, in a different time zone, we are having this conversation. So I'm at home alone, maybe so are you, but we are connected. So this is like starting to get some sort of idea of what will come next with the air, because now, as I said, the power changes hands, and the air means communication, interaction, knowledge, and the possibility of having the freedom to decide, because also the air is about freedom. But this freedom comes with responsibility, because if we think again of what this encounter between Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius means, it means that Jupiter, the new order, the young king, has defeated the old order, the old king, who is Saturn. Saturn in methodology is very interesting. I'm not going to go into that. But Saturn, the father, the old king, is the one that established with a very firm hand the order, the rules, the decisions. In fact, because he didn't want his children to defeat him, he would eat his children, right? So, in order to make sure that they would not rebel, that they would not bring him down, right? So, he would eat his children. And when Rhea, Jupiter's mother, Saturn's wife, realizes that Jupiter was in danger, she exchanged Jupiter for pieces of stone. So Saturn ate the stones, thinking that it was Jupiter, and Jupiter was able to organize himself in order to finally defeat the king, his father, and liberate and free his siblings, which is what he does. So today is pretty much about this myth. That is, on the one hand, everything I said about the element earth has a lot to do with Saturn as a principle, because Saturn is precisely about being grounded, being responsible, the idea of time, process, everything needs time. It needs to somehow or rather needs time to be built and constructed firmly enough so that it stays on and it can be preserved. So that is what Saturn would like things to be like, or he would like to continue with these principles. But now that Jupiter has already crossed over Saturn, because on the 21st, first Jupiter was behind Saturn. In the moment the conjunction was produced, that is, both in the same degree together, Jupiter was behind Saturn. So Saturn was saying, okay, young lad, come with me. I will show you the way. And Jupiter started thinking, okay, this is the time to go over Saturn and start rushing away, which is what Jupiter will start doing. You know that Jupiter stays in the same sign for, say, 12, 13 months. So Jupiter will be in Aquarius for the next 12 months. But funnily enough, because Jupiter is in such a hurry to move away from Saturn and the sort of strong hand of rules, orders, limits, right? You can, you can't, right? That is Saturn's voice. So in order to avoid that, Jupiter will reach Pisces in May. Imagine how how much in a hurry Jupiter is, that it will start kind of rushing away from Saturn, reach Pisces, but then Saturn, watching Jupiter's back, will say, young lad, come back, you're speeding up, you're not supposed to, and Jupiter will go retrograde and will go back to Aquarius until November, December 2021. Now, what this means also is that even though we are entering this new era, and when many changes will take place, because Aquarius is about the new, about advances, also about knowledge, even theories or discoveries that today we cannot even imagine, because one of the things that will very probably happen for the next 20 years especially is that we will be shocked by new things, new discoveries, for better and worse. That is, which is what happens with science as it moves on, it discovers things that can be used positively or negatively. So this, of course, we have to brace ourselves to also meet. But in principle, everything that the new king wants to do and will try to do, which is also organizing society differently, the force of the collective will become even much more important than we saw happening in 2020. It was like the beginning of what will now become the usual form, like groups defending their ideals, their philosophies, their principles, fighting to get what they want and to be free enough to be allowed to express themselves and also to do what they believe strongly is the truth. So, all these different cells and groups, which is good, like coming with new ideas, new principles, new ideologies, also comes with the risk of division because there will be groups kind of defending one principle, one idea, which is very good, but then there will be another group defending the opposite. So part of the learning for humanity is that we have to allow these differences, and what really will make us more evolved and will help us grow is opening up our minds to listen to different voices. You can defend your ideas with your own voice. Make your voice strong. This is what Jupiter says in the air element. And look for your truths, your beliefs, your principles, your philosophies of life. You are free to do so. But you have to respect the differences that will become bigger and stronger. But rather than opposing these differences, feed on them. That is, what you think different from me adds to what I already know. So what is happening these days with all these kind of different Zoom sessions, YouTube sessions. By the way, obviously the digital world is becoming the means of communication, right? Not only communication, e-commerce, e-banking, everything that already was important will become essential and probably the only way of trade, right? Everything will happen online. But as I was saying, and then I sidetracked myself a little, Saturn is there. So during this transition of big changes and this real kind of plunge into the new, Saturn will anyway be close enough to say, this takes time, this needs to be organized, you need rules. Otherwise, we can very easily fall into chaos because everything is so new without any previous model, because actually the 2020 with all this Capricorn energy kind of coming to an end also says that old models will not exist anymore. Everything will be brand new. So the fact that there are no previous models makes it so important that Saturn should be there as some sort of pillar, because Saturn is a pillar. So if we don't want to fall into chaos, which is kind of one of the risks of these new times, then we have to also take the best from experience. And that is the wise old man. That is Saturn. Saturn can be the king that we defeat, but is also the wise old man who has the answers throughout history, because Saturn is the one that really shows what needs to be done in time, with time, in order to be able to build and construct. So, do you have any questions so
Yeah,
far?
I have a few. I want to say one thing. What you were just saying is really interesting because ideally, what we would do now, right, is review everything that has come up in the last few years, especially in the last year, I would say, and see what's not working. How can we do it differently? And like have an open mind, like you were saying, like that air energy, and like rewrite laws or redo things differently and just rethink how we're going to move forward, kind of like a reset, you know what I mean? And a lot of people are saying that going into this new kind of era of air, that it is a reset. So people have all this expectation. They're putting so much, I don't like that either, of putting so much pressure on a specific date. Or to me, it's going to be, like you were saying, it's going to take time. It's not a change we're going to see in one day. But that's my hope, that we can all just kind of make the changes individually and collectively, you know, governments, states, whatever that is, and change what we need to change, because I think that's important. Otherwise, what did we learn? You know what I mean?
Absolutely, I agree. Because, and this is in part what I was just saying, in order to be able to do things well in the new way, which is because it is new, as I said, it's also a kind of trial and error transition, because there will be many things that we will try and see they don't work. So we have to, go back and see how else to do it. Which means that there is where also history and certain things. What is very interesting is that what Uranus in Taurus is asking also is, because the Earth is actually giving us clear signs that we are not actually treating Earth well, and we as human beings have been abusing the resources of the Earth. So part of these changes, part of the wind that has been blowing so hard these days, as a sign also of the air era, right? It was funny to see how the wind started blowing worldwide, right? But also Uranus in Taurus will bring a lot of events that will warn us against misusing or abusing our resources and the land and everything that we as human beings need in order to survive. And there is where I feel also this thing of listen to the wise old man. That is, we have to turn back to aborigines, to people living in a less civilized world. I wonder if actually we are that civilized. But anyway, just to use a term, right? Those who are wilder or more connected with natural ways, and that we have to recover. So when we think of the new order, new techniques, advances, yes, that definitely cannot be stopped and will not be stopped. So there will be many things happening. The other day I was watching a video showing it's a new, I suppose it is a test model, but it's a new kind of car that turns into a plane, into a small plane. It was funny to see the car on the road and then spreading the wings and taking off. So I think this, which seems impossible to imagine today, will be very common, and say 5 years from now. Not that far away in time. But in order to protect the human race, we need to listen to the people who really know, and that we will not find on the internet only. Most probably, we have to go back to natural essences, natural ways of even in the world of medicine. All these tests to find the best medication or vaccine to fight viruses. There will be more coming, unfortunately. Probably, if we turned to nature a little more, I mean, probably there are answers there, or there are things we can resort to in order to improve our health. Because actually, which is the best vaccine against a virus? Your self-defense mechanism. So we have to make our defense mechanism stronger by eating healthily, vegetables, fruit. I mean, find
That's
vitamins.
so true. Oh
So
my gosh, I feel that every day. Like, I'm like, they're pushing so many, we can find the answers within ourselves. Like, I think this is all also there to wake us up from the way we're living, like how
absolutely.
unhealthy we are, the stress, the hustle and bustle, like people moving more into more rural areas or suburban areas. I think it's a lot, all of that.
Yeah, that is looking for the new air, and the air is away from the city. So, yeah, the fact that we have been cramming together, trying to live as though in a sardine tin, has shown this is not working well, because social distance means much more than just avoiding being infected by a virus. It's like I can't breathe, right? Like the words we heard beginning of 2020. So we as human beings, we cannot breathe because we have exhausted the clear air, right? So we need to also, as you said, Lorena, we have to become more and more aware. That's why we were isolated, to do a real kind of introspection and listen to our inner voice. What exactly do you need? Who exactly do you want to be, or where do you want to live? These are the big questions that were raised for the new consciousness, right? And everything that happened in the 2020 with this meeting of the three big powers in Capricorn, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter. Now Saturn and Jupiter have finally moved away from Pluto. That's why things are lightening up. I mean, in a way. Anyway, as I said, it will take a long, long time not to go back, because there's no going back, because people are asking, when are we going back to our normal kind of life? Well, it's not about going back. It is about moving on, trusting that what is coming and the new kind of reality is what we need as human beings today. So, but as I said, we need to also turn back and look back to the wisdom that there is and will continue existing in the history of humanity, because it's not about getting rid of everything. That is also important in this time of introspection, right? Many of us have turned to organic vegetables, growing our own vegetables at home. Yeah, that is going back to the wisdom of the early times when there were no insecticides, or everything that comes with evolution or growth, right?
Yeah, and sharing that with your community, because I see that as well. Like,
Definitely.
I grow this, you grow that, we help each other, and we're in it together. Like, I see that energy. But I have a question.
Sure.
So I know we're speaking at a very general level of the alignments of the planet right now and the energy. Do you think that this conjunction and all of this kind of planetary alignment, is that going to affect certain signs more than others, since we're going into an era of air? Would that affect really more air signs?
Yeah, actually, well, we are all affected, because as above, so below. So definitely, and we are witnesses of this, definitely. But then when you look into someone's chart, there you see the energy field, the personal energy field. So that energy field attracts and rejects other energetic field. So there are some signs that with the entrance of Aquarius in the hands of Saturn and Jupiter will be more closely shaken, if you like, or I don't want to use the word affected, but we will somehow rather live the experience more vividly, more directly, experiencing in our daily life more than others. Same as in the previous period, it was the Capricorn energy, and therefore people with their sun, moon, ascendant, or personal planets in Capricorn probably felt it more strongly. But it's not just about Capricorn, for example, in that case, because when we consider how the energy in the sky can affect us, we have to think of what we call the cardinal cross. So 4 signs will always be part of the cardinal cross. So when something important, big or transcendental is happening in one sign, it affects the sign that is opposite and the other 2 signs that form a square of a 90-degree distance in between. So for the new, as Anna will answer your question actually, for this new energetic presence in Aquarius, we have to take a look at the fixed cross, not the cardinal cross. And that is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Because Aquarius and Leo are opposite signs. So everything that is happening in the Aquarius energetic field, and therefore if you're an Aquarius by birth, if your moon, which is your emotional world, is in Aquarius, so you feel this presence of this energy more directly in terms of how you usually look for safety, how you look for refuge, or what you normally consider when you feel afraid or vulnerable, what gives you this peace of mind. Okay, so that is what the moon does. So moon in Aquarius will feel that the usual way of finding refuge is not there anymore, for example, or the ascendant in Aquarius, which is determined by the time and place of birth. So you can find that out on the internet by entering your birth data, but the time has to be as precise as possible together with the place of birth. So there's where you see where the sun, your sign, when it came out, when you were born, what sign was the one that welcomed you. That is your ascendant. And you need to bring that into your consciousness and live the energy as if it were your sign as well, right? So it's a combination of your sun sign and your ascendant that make up your personality. So Aquarius is affected, but also people whose sun, moon, or ascendant is Leo, or the same for Taurus and Scorpio.
Oh, great. I have Taurus and Scorpio, so.
Yeah. So you have to prepare yourself for all these movements. Now, again.
Does that mean, for example, Lorena's going to emotionally feel it more, or the changes she needs to work with the changes more? What does that mean exactly?
Actually, it depends on what part of the chart we are focusing in on. That is, if it is your sign, that is your sun, it affects who you are. It affects, the way you express yourself or the way you feel is your nature, right? So something will bring some sort of change so that you bring out new facets of your creativity also, because Aquarius has a lot to do with creativity. So it's like reinventing, as you were saying, Lorena, resetting, reinventing. It's like bringing out the new in you. So what we did in 2020 was to get rid of what was no longer true for each one of us or no longer necessary. And do I need this job? Do I need this? Or am I happy with this in this relationship? Am I okay with the place where I'm living? I mean, all these things that were for different reasons shaken up is the crisis that we needed in order to make way for the new. So, but the new needs space. So it means that previous to this, we had to let go of many things. If it is your sun, that is your personality. If it is the moon, it is the way you look for safety when you're emotionally unbalanced. So many times it is, I cannot no longer turn to my, I don't know, my mother when I'm in fear of something, or I don't know, if I need her to huddle me. Maybe this movement shows that you have to look for new embraces or new ways of feeling safe, right? So the change with the moon is precisely that. And if it is in your ascendant, fate and destiny will bring, through people or events, many changes to show whether you can adapt yourself to these new ways, right? So it depends on where in your chart this energy falls, and therefore the information changes. But it's important to understand that somehow or other we all have an Aquarius in our chart, and Leo and Taurus and Scorpio. Either it's not maybe these fundamental pieces of information, but a planet or a house. I mean, a house is a field of experience. It can affect your economy, your studies, your relationship with your siblings, with your children. So somehow or other, we are all in some way or another touched by this energy, and with the request for definitely flow with a change and fly into the new order without knowing exactly where or how we will land on firm land, because actually now it's more about trusting that yes, we are all with one foot in the air, still one foot on the ground. Transition, right? So we are all holding fast to what we have, where we are, what we own, and what we know. That is one foot. But the other foot is already up in the air. And what we are asked to do is to take the plunge into the void. Not easy. So it will take some time, probably 3-4 years, to start taking some sort of shape and form for us to understand what exactly was asked of us like 4 years ago, when in this big time of big changes, I mean, we were sort of shaken up to embrace the new. So maybe 3-4 years to start getting some sort of clue, because everything is cyclical. So in astrology, we can talk about today this conjunction, but it's a dynamic conjunction. It doesn't stay there forever. In fact, Jupiter, as I said, has started moving on very quickly, and it will do so much more so. So something that just started will then start growing into a process. Everything is process. So we have to be ready for the transition, the process, and the uncertainty of what eventually will take form.
We have to trust a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
And then so you said Jupiter's going to be like going all the way till May, kind of speeding up, and then it goes retrograde. Does that mean that there'll be a bunch of like processes or changes, and then those will kind of take step back with Jupiter as well.
Very, very probably. Yeah. It's like there will be many things that will be done very hastily. Think of, for example, just to take one example, the vaccine. I mean, we knew, astrologers knew that probably the vaccine would become more accessible once Jupiter crossed over Saturn. We needed that leap. Otherwise, Saturn would keep saying, wait, not ready, not perfect, not experienced for so long so that we know it works, right? So that is what Saturn wants. Time to see that things work well and that we decide on things with responsibility. But we don't have much time for that. So Jupiter jumps over Saturn and starts rushing in Aquarius. So Jupiter, think of Jupiter as new paths, new roads, because what Jupiter does is open roads so that we can travel new roads to find the truth. Jupiter eventually leads us to our mastery, to our masters and guides, to our, knowledge, right? I mean, Jupiter is about bigger and broader knowledge, right? So this is what Jupiter is bringing, which is good because there will be this sense. Also, Jupiter brings a sense of confidence and optimism. So we need that. We need that a lot, right? So this injection of optimism is good. Saturn will stay behind saying, careful, you still have to do things well. Otherwise, you have not learned anything. But Jupiter will open up these roads, these paths. So the thing is that Jupiter, as you said, Lucia, will start like trying things so quickly, trying to find the answer and the truth. And there will be many things that will be done so quickly that they will eventually prove not solid enough or not real enough, right? So, yeah, there will be in many things a going back, which is in a way also part of what we said before. It's not about forgetting all about the past. There are certain things that with experience we learned they are good, they are valid, they are useful. We need to take that in mind as well, right? Not just forget everything, whether we are leaving behind.
We have to use it's like history. We have to look back only to just learn from our learn lessons and realize what we need to change and what doesn't work. But if we ignore it, then we're just repeating the same mistakes over and over again.
Exactly.
And it also feels like that technology that's coming in is also setting us up for creating that distance of everyone going back to like nature and communal communities, I guess you'd call it, right? Do you feel like this remote kind of working or being is going to continue then?
Yeah, it has come to stay. I mean, yeah.
I felt that too.
Yeah, because, that also what we have discovered is that staying at home, working from home, or not traveling for work means also an important reduction of expenses that are not necessary. So it's a way of preserving also the economy because of this Earth era, everything was about, the money you have, what you can do with money, and then I want more money, and then it's like a snowball, right? Everything was accumulation and needing more density. So this new way of doing things, which also comes with, unfortunately, the fact that many jobs will be lost and many trades will be lost. Many things that were necessary not so long ago will stop being necessary. And this is part of what happened or what is still happening in 2020, many people are unemployed. What this gave way to, this unemployment, was the awareness for governments that it's important to make sure that everyone alike has the chance to survive. So what started becoming also true is this aid that governments have been giving people who are unemployed. In some countries, this was more possible or easier to do than in others, but I don't know exactly what you call it. It's some sort of insurance or something like laid off money. I mean, something that people are given because, of course, without a job, they cannot survive. But in part, this is to, again, see that certain jobs will no longer probably be necessary, but also the importance of thinking as a collective, as a community. If I have and you don't have, then let's see that it is equal for the both of us, right? And so this is, I guess, also what will start happening. New social orders, new social, unfortunately, elites will continue existing because that is also Aquarius. Aquarius says it's important to think as a collective and in a horizontal way, but within that horizontal organization, there are some special groups. And so there will probably arise more of these special groups who will have access to things that others will not. Again, think of the vaccine. Some people will have access to one special vaccine. Others will probably have no access at all, or to the one that comes into the country where you live. So it's not exactly the same for all of us, right? But back to your question, because the digital world is actually what will become really the protagonist in the coming years. Homeschooling through the internet, unfortunately, because we're missing out on all this human contact, but then also working from home, studying from home, and I think this is here to stay. And it's funny. I was reading a couple of days ago someone saying that the social network that is definitely becoming more and more important these days is very unsocial, right? So it's interesting, that concept that in the social era, we have to still struggle with a lot of unsocial behavior. So a lot to learn. I mean, there also, right,
sure.
in this new organization.
And you talked about like technology, and you gave the example of that car airplane, which, by the way, the pilot in me loves. That's like the Jetsons. I remember when I was young, we used to watch the Jetsons.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I can't wait for that to happen one day.
Well, it won't take that long.
And then we're talking about, like, Earth and taking care of Earth and going back to a more natural way of living. I also believe that not all, like, common humans have all the, I guess you say, the blame on that, because I do believe that people like Tesla had the answer to really clean energy that could have helped Earth. And of course, it wasn't convenient for whoever, and it was blocked. Do you think that kind of technology is the one that we'd be able to tap back into, or that can be like leaked out into the world finally, because it's already kind of known, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think this is definitely so. So what will start becoming more known or obvious is that in the past, it was about the power of a few in the hands of a few for economic reasons. Obviously, everything moving around this idea of having power because you have more shares in the market, because you have the monopoly of a certain industry. So what this Aquarius area is bringing is bringing things out to light, because the more you know, the more information you have, the more power you have. So that's why there will still be a long period of resistance between the old, because it's not that everything changes overnight or has changed overnight already. Definitely not, because the old order will try to struggle to impose itself on the new ideas, right? The old king will not let the young sovereign just rush away and do things his way. So I guess that anyway, the social force will be so big, so strong, that these new, maybe some not even so new, but these ideas that bring the possibility of a better use of resources will definitely come in and will be a reality. And because there will be groups joining together to bring this through, that eventually this will definitely will not be stopped. They won't be able to stop it somehow. And if we see also in the world, I mean, think of how in the past and for the last 200 years, the power mainly was in the hands of one big name. And you can think of very many different big names worldwide, and they were the reference of what was right or wrong, or what was needed of the people or wanted of the people. This will definitely stop being like this. It's like governments will have to reorganize themselves in different I don't know, I mean, hierarchies also, but like different groups. So I guess the idea of, I don't know, more, I don't know what, because I'm not too good with politics either, but it's like, different heads having in common the idea of how can we do things better for society. That is, the Aquarius is all about the social groups, social organization. Also, it's about, do you say solidarity in English?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So it's about being generous with your community. So generosity, solidarity, empathy, understanding the needs of your neighbors. This is also coming in. So I think that is a good force pushing the old ways away. So
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm Sagittarius, so that sounds amazing to me. I love change. I'm obsessed with change.
Yeah. But let me tell you something interesting, that now that you mentioned Sagittarius, because there's another important presence in the sky, which is not actually a planet, but an intersection of elliptical movements of the sun and the moon, which we call the nodes. And the nodes stay in the same sign for 19 months. And this last May, the nodes shifted from the axis Capricorn Cancer to Sagittarius Gemini. So what we have today in the sky, and this was especially kind of reinforced, these things I'm going to explain now were reinforced in the last solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse in November as well. I mean, we had this lunar eclipse on the 30th of November and the solar eclipse in December, total solar eclipse. And an eclipse takes place when the moon and the sun are near the nodes. Then is when we talk of an eclipse. Otherwise, we have full moons, new moons every month. So an eclipse requires the presence of a new moon or a full moon, but in proximity to the nodes. Then is when the lights go off, and it's a big moment of making some sort of strong insight into what we need to let go of in order to make room for what needs to come in. And in this last eclipse, solar eclipse, in Sagittarius, the South Node in Sagittarius and the North Node in Gemini is also bringing an important message, which is the South Node is about letting go of, it's about draining, it's about exhausting, right? And then the North Node is about incorporating, is about bringing in what needs to be contacted in order to make the most of what the sky is telling us we should do. So the South Node in Sagittarius is still and will continue in this same sign for the rest of the 2021, most of 2021, is we need to let go in the Sagittarius words of that unique truth, the idea that there is only one big truth and we need to believe in that, and also the misunderstanding that in order to grow or in order to evolve, you need to go far away to find the big answers or the big teachings. So that is why Sagittarius is about traveling, for example. So what happened in 2020 and will continue probably happening is that it's not so much about going away from where you are in order to find those answers. And that's why many times traveling has not been easy, will not be that easy. It's about, the North Node in Gemini says, is about incorporating very different ideas, not that unique truth that Sagittarius usually believes in. And Gemini is about, I want to listen to your voice. I want to listen to your voice. Listen to my voice. Let's see if together we can then add to what we know and profit from it. And Gemini is not about going away. It's about turning to your neighbor or the person who is around you. So Gemini says, either through a screen or wherever you are, get in touch with other people, exchange ideas, BART services or products, which is, because of what is going on and happening with the economy, this is happening a lot more and will continue happening. Exchange of whatever, products, objects, knowledge, especially ideas. So we need to open up our minds to many very different ideas, and rather than argue against or clashing with, we need to open up to those differences, which is also part of the air era, because Gemini is an air sign also. That's why that principle of the Gemini air is here also to stay for a while.
Yeah, that's like you were saying before, to really get a specific reading on how all of this is going to affect you personally, I guess. Like they could have a natal chart reading with you or with whoever their astrologer is, I guess.
Yeah.
But you do offer natal chart readings, you do solar revolutions, you do a bunch of different types of natal chart readings.
Yeah.
So if anybody's interested, obviously you can reach out to Patricia. We'll have all the information on the show notes. But I also don't want you to forget, because we're probably going to close out soon.
Yeah.
Which is really exciting, and it goes into all this air stuff, right? Like online and quicker and just exchanging knowledge. You're doing an intensive course, right? In English.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually, I came up with that idea without realizing exactly that this was what was asked from the sky, to do things more quickly and also in a more dynamic way. So I'm launching an intensive course for the first year of astrology in 3 months. That is February, March, and April. Is that right? February, March,
I think
April.
so,
Yes.
yeah.
And the idea is that you can learn the basics of astrology. That is everything I spoke about today. I mean, when I talked about Jupiter, Saturn, or Capricorn, or Gemini, Sagittarius, to understand what this language is all about. So it's like learning the ABC of astrology, and also allowing you to take a look at your chart and start getting a clearer or better idea of what your personal map says about your life in general. So then in 3 months, you can learn about different signs, different moons, houses, energies. So yeah, this is coming soon. So I will be sending you the newsletter, girls, so in case you want to
Yeah, so
share.
when we I don't know if it'll be ready once we come out with this episode in a few weeks, but if not, we'll share it on our channel so people know, because I think
Great.
I mean, I just finished first year and I went from knowing absolutely nothing about astrology. Like, I was fascinated by it after I did my natal chart reading with you, but I didn't understand anything. So like now I can actually look at a chart and start to understand things. And, I love just like pulling up my chart and being like, okay, as I start to understand things and piecing things together, it's fascinating. And I think it can give you really a good insight on starting to understand yourself a little bit more, right?
Yeah, and besides, it's like much more common today to hear people talking in terms of astrology. Everyone is talking about this great conjunction. People are calling me or writing, asking what exactly that means. So this is what I think people will start needing, regardless of your interest in astrology, is having the language to understand what is now becoming an important means of communication, right? Like
Oh my
understanding the sky and reading the messages more clearly. You need the language. So I guess this will definitely help.
Language. It is
I hope so.
definitely a language.
It is, surely. Sure, yeah.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I don't know if you want to have anything else you want to add in about.
I think, there's so much to say that even when I'm talking about, everything I just spoken about, I always feel I should have said this or that, but there's so much that it would take another hour probably to continue. Just to round it off a bit, and so that I leave some sort of message. What I think we are invited to do, then you can choose. We always have the free will to do so or not, but we are invited to really understand that the best thing we can do for what is coming, which is big changes, unpredictability, a sense of I don't know, and I wonder, if we just give ourselves away to this and trusting that the universe wants the best for us. So rather than being like shaking in our shoes in the corner, wanting to hold on to whatever was part of our past, that definitely won't help, because that past somehow or other will disappear. So the best thing is spread out your wings, trust that taking the leap is what we are asked to do as human beings. So, and that probably the power of love and the power of this unity that we feel is going to become really important, like unite ourselves in as human beings, saying, okay, I trust, you trust, let's hold hands and take the jump, take the leap. So I think that's the best thing we can do, despite all the anxiety or worry that it can come with. It's like, okay, I know that this is coming for the best. So let's go with it.
Yeah, trust.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That's a lot to digest.
Thank you, girls, again. I love these invitations. So, you can then ask me to come and join you anytime you like.
I'm sure we'll have you back again.
Grateful.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Merry Christmas and Merry everything. Happy everything. Felices fiestas y que venga con mucho amor y mucha felicidad.
We hope you guys enjoyed that episode. There's so much information that Patricia provided for everybody, but I think it gives a good idea of the energy and what we're going into for 2021. And it's perfect because this is our first episode back, and we'll be coming back every Monday, as always, with a new episode. So look out for those. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your podcast platform. And also, if you feel called to share this episode with anybody, that would be great. And also, we would appreciate it if you guys do enjoy the podcast, if you could take just a few minutes to rate and review us on iTunes. That would be amazing, and we would greatly appreciate it. And also make sure you're following us on Instagram and Facebook, because we're always updating information there, and we're also sharing like weekly Gaia recommendations, which you can watch for free and all that. So make sure you're following us there, and we'll be back next week with a new episode. Sending you all love and light, and have a great week.